gamers, gals, non-binary pals. It's your boy, Stevie. And not too long ago, there was a little Genesys points update that basically shot me in the stomach and left me bleeding out on the steps of snowy rainfall or whatever. But you know, it's not the end of the world. I had my little debate on why I think it was good, why I think some things were bad, and my concerns about the future of Genesys. However, Konami came out with a little article today, answering some of your questions about October's points updates. So, let's read it together. I have a lot of very big questions, specifically why bad decks were hit that had no results, why good decks were not hit, and why some staples, for the most part, seem to be being shifted back into the format, despite this format trying itself to distance itself from like the TCG, versus like, you know, it being its own quirky, unique format where you have to like carefully consider playing decks if you want to play like powerful non-engine. And the introduction of stuff like Nibiru and Ghost Ogre and Ghost Mortar back into the format, I think, is mildly concerning. So, give it a read. Okay. Was this points update not what you were expecting? If you haven't seen it, you can find it here. There's been a lot of chatter about the update, and we want to take some time to answer some of the more common questions about the numbers and how we got there. Why didn't Radiant Typhoon Vision get any points, while Rescue Ace did? Impulse. It's a matter of what people were playing and not playing in the deck lists we have access to. And the data we have, Impulse is all over the place, but Vision is almost exclusively used by Radiant Typhoon, which is its home. The fact that this question has been coming up at all has mean a lot of Genesys play has been going on, which we aren't seeing, which is good. Shout out to Dueling Buck, by the way. The more people are playing, the better. But if you want your gameplay to affect the overall format, we need to see those deck lists and tournament results. Okay, first concern. Definitely people are just playing this shit. Like, I promise you, Radiant Typhoon Visions is strong enough of a card that it probably warrants a hit. You can also play Radiant Typhoon Visions in something like Pearly, because that deck plays like a billion quick play spells. Like, the problem, even in Memento, yeah, exactly. Like, filtering duplicate quick plays. I mean, it was a lot more problematic before they like pointed stuff out, like the Goblin break, like the Goblin quick play. That's my, just because the Goblin quick play, whatever. I don't know. I lost my train of thought. You guys get the idea. Just because Impulse is played a lot does not mean it's unhealthy. Yeah, exactly. That's like a very, very good, very good argument. That's like saying Skullmeister is being played a lot. Like, Skullmeister is like a very specifically targeted card towards a very specific archetypes. Like, are you gonna tell me that Skullmeister is the problem here? Like, Rescue Ace Impulse is a card that has an extremely high drawback of having to play a fucking Garnet, as well as the fact that it takes up a high amount of deck space. Like, 4 spaces is a lot. 4 deck slots is a lot. And as well as the fact that it's not actually a hand trap. It's just a card that, like, filters your hand, which isn't actually that good. In a format like this, where, like, turn 0 plays don't really exist. Like, it's a pretty good effect, but it's not, like, point-worthy. At least I would believe so. Like, are you gonna point Twin Twister and Hey Trunade? Are we gonna point DD Crow? Are we gonna point, like, Dracotel Flame and Sev of Tachyon? Again, the existence of a card does not mean it is unhealthy. It is just because it is an option in a format that has a lack of generic staples that we are not able to have whatever. But yeah, Radiant Typhoon is Radiant Typhoon Vision. Although it's like a marginally less splashable, it still is a very splashable card. You know what I mean? Like, any deck that plays a quick play, you can just put it in there, cause fuck it, why not? K9 could play it, yeah. Just play like multiple rank ups, fuck it. But hopefully they address this later. But Radiant Typhoon, it's still an extremely powerful deck. Like, the main issue of Radiant Typhoon wasn't like Visions. Visions was mainly just a very powerful enabler for Radiant Typhoon, and it was like their best spell card. Obviously, it drew them 2 fucking cards and let them like dig for like Crocier or whatever. The main issue of Radiant Typhoon is that it is too complete of a deck and too powerful of a deck and engine overall for Genesys to be unpointed. The big issue with it is that, like, every Radiant Typhoon card is completely unpointed and extremely powerful in, like, the limited format that is Genesys. Like, this is literally a 2025 archetype. Oh boy, I'm sure the deck that searches MC has no synergy with the 0-point card that lets you draw 4 cards. Like Radiant Typhoon, like draw 2, search MST at some point, MST your own Mirage of Nightmare after you get draws like some runic spells. Like that shit is like fucking terroristy. Like, I can kind of understand why Radiant Typhoon Vision didn't get points, but at the same time, it's like, you don't want to hit this deck? Like at all? Really? A deck that's been putting up real results? If you want your gameplay to affect the overall format, we need to see those decks lists and tournament results. Yeah, I sure hope my fucking 10 billion Radiant Typhoon tournament results aren't fucking causing brain aneurysms. And yeah, last turn really deserved it, right guys? How'd you come up with the point spread for Vanquish Soul? The main goals for Vanquish Soul's adjustment was to reduce Holly Sue's outsized impact on duels, especially turn 1 of duels, and to keep her away from Ash Blossom, while making sure Vanquish Soul decks that look more like Agov era versions stay legal. I'm pretty sure it doesn't exist anymore. Like, even if I cut every pointed card, is this, like, you can't play this. This is what it looked like in Agov era. You just played a bunch of guys. This isn't Agov. Like, the deck is just murdered. But again, Konami at its finest. We wanted running more than one Holly Suit to disrupt the basic foundation of the deck, or at least make players do something strange, like go all in on Vanquish Soul start with lower counts of Raisin, for instance. This set of numbers both accomplishes this goal, and we think the easiest to understand and work with it while deck building is 11, 11, 33. But remember, nothing's permanent. Like, sure, but even if you treated this like pre-Agov, and you want to pretend like this like Raisin is limited, it's still too many fucking points! Agov had no Sue. I don't know, man. This fucking deck sucks now. This deck is like unplayable. Like, I think Vanquish Soul existing is fine. I think the existence of this deck is completely fair. But I think that more care should have just gone into like hitting these cards rather than just fucking like taking out Beck and shooting it in the head. Like, this deck without Holly Sue is probably unplayable. Holly Sue is literally the only reason this deck is playable. So you either have to be like, we're going to point out Holly Sue, or make it so that it's a real amount of points. Like, or we're just going to shoot this deck in the head and just be lazy about it. Like, if Raisin, Jellong, and Holly Sue were each 20 points, this would be way more fair. You would have to make serious concessions on like playing multiples of Raisin or Holly Sue or Jiaolong or whatever, and you'd have to accept that your deck is going to have a very inconsistent ability to open like turn 0 Holly Sue plays, because Rescue Ace Fire Attackers like Rescue Ace Impulse is going to be pointed out. There's going to be less opportunities to open like Fire Dark Hands. This deck's ability to grind would be significantly cut short because you don't have access to Rock to like infinitely grab back stuff from Grave. Like, grabbing stuff out of Grave with this deck is very, very difficult, unless you want to play like fucking Pot of Avarice. If you want to run 3-1-1, that's 99, you still get to keep the band together minus Ash Blossom, but you also skip Holly Sue completely and run 3-2-3 and keep the advantage of having Ash in your deck while most other decks aren't running it. This is akin to what people are playing after Jiaolong's release. Other permutations are possible, and Vanquish Soul cards are very powerful and easy to pull up out of your deck, so expect Vanquish Soul to still be a strong deck. I'll tell you right now, this deck is unplayable. Like, again, the only reason this deck was playable is because of Holly Sue. And without Holly Sue, this deck sucks. If you cannot play Holly Sue, if you cannot play a shell that uses Holly Sue consistently, your deck is unplayable. The deck becomes bad. This deck was still ass during up. This deck was always ass! This deck was always complete horseshit until Holly Sue. Why didn't 7th Tachyon get any points? The short answer is, it cost you a card in the hand. This I do actually agree with. 7th Tachyon is like a very, very specific sort of Rhoda that not every deck can abuse. Like, yes, you can just slap 3 of it in a deck and just like call it a day, but the pool of cards that are searchable with 7th Tachyon are pretty limited. And again, it does neg you 1. And if you're gonna say, oh, Stevie, like, wouldn't playing certain decks like Automat be infinitely better than other decks because you have the added consistency of playing 7th Tachyon? Yeah, but go fuck yourself. Like, yes, but at the same time, it's like, it's completely fine for decks to have some sort of consistency tool. Like, yes, it is frustrating to have cards like Rhoda, Tenki, Fossil Dig, Emergency Teleport, to have a lot of points, and like 7th Tachyon just gets to like do whatever. But again, 7th Tachyon does neg you, and additionally, the decks that do play 7th Tachyon are either not that good or have been pointed out in its entirety. Being limited to just one strategy makes it hard to reach the point, even though it is strong and casts a wide net. Maybe it could be like 5 points, or like 3 points even, but 0 points, but like, I can understand why they would never bring it above like 5 points, ever. Yeah, and also Droll is everywhere. Droll is a pretty fucking good card. Rhoda, Tanky, False Link, Emergency Teleport are all 35 because of the new update. Thank you, Commander Rabbit. Sick Balls. Galagranite and Infernal Flame Banshee are 33. Bonfire's 33, Banshee's 33. Nightmare Apprentice drop for 40, 20. Silent Mining is 0. Why is Silent Mining 0? It's because Link monsters don't fucking exist. Nightmare Apprentice costs a discard as well, but is basically free because it's a monster you get to basically summon for itself. 7th Tachyon casts a much wider net than Silent Mining, but also costs you ED space and an XYZ lock to do so. The more apt comparison is Small World, who has a wider net, but costs you a card in hand and a bridge, brain power. This will never happen, and a 0 points. The cost range convenience of 7th Tachyon places squarely between Silent Mining and Small World, both 0, and so its initial value was 0. As for why it wasn't increased, it's just not being used enough. The XYZ decks were largely underrepresented and not seeing widespread usage due to Extrab and Upstart Goblin sort of being better options, which makes sense as it locks you into XYZ decks, and many decks focus on formats, fusions, and synchros. So right now, we have nothing to show it's out of line. Outside of Automat, obviously, with the points out of the Flying Sea, it's possible XYZ decks could roar back and dominate Pittsburgh qualifiers, but it's difficult to imagine such a drastic shift. The main issue with, like, XYZ deck isn't that, like, they're bad. Like, Vanquish Soul was not a bad deck. Mimighoul is not a bad deck. I mean, like, the issue with, like, XYZ decks isn't because of, like, Retaliating Sea or, like, the 7th Tachyon lock. Like, Mimighoul doesn't care about the lock. Automat doesn't care about the lock. Whatever, like, Super Quant doesn't care about the lock. The issue with XYZ decks is that XYZ decks are fucking garbage. I'm kidding. XYZ decks have very clearly defined weaknesses because the existence of their monsters is extremely important. It's more important than synchro monsters, which are able to sort of like mix and match their tuners and whatever. But XYZ plays are extremely telegraphed in terms of like what choke points look like, as well as the fact that XYZ decks all have similar play styles. Like, what does Super Quant do? It searches a bunch of cards to go into a big XYZ. What does Pearly do? It searches a bunch of cards to go into a big XYZ. What does Mimighoul do? It searches a bunch of cards and goes into, like, an XYZ. I don't even think it really searches that much. I mean, like, Dungeon Dragon, I guess. But it effectively goes through a lot of cards in order to grab your XYZ. What does, like, Madolche do? It searches... Jesus Christ, I don't even have it on a Madolche list. It searches a bunch of cards and attempts to go into, like, a bunch of XYZ. The issue with XYZ decks isn't the fact that, like, floodgates exist or, like, you know, they don't have good enough tools. It's just that they have very clearly defined weaknesses that other decks are able to pinpoint and abuse effectively. Through either non-engines, such as, like, Droll and Lockbird, or, like, Daruma Karma Cannon if you're on something like Paleo, or... through something like, you know, just like popping their board or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Besides K9. Yeah, obviously K9 is like the exception because that deck has a one card. That deck effectively has like a one card breakup. You know what I mean? The same. Why did Beals go to 0 to 100? My bad, guys. The same old FTK check has been up to for the last decade, ever since Flare Metal was released. Some of us monsters use an effect and then damage in any way. The infinite loop of Beals getting attacked to the Flare Metal, dealing damage result, ending the game immediately. Since that, a couple Synchro Dragons, such as have been released, as well as Mind Castle, which makes the exchange much easier to do. One person brought the Blackwing version of the deck with Blackwing Assault Dragon to the qualifiers, and that was enough for it to get kicked out of the party. Yep, I'm sure that's what it was. I'm sure it wasn't a little Black Rose FTK. Nope. Not. Yep, it was definitely one random guy. Trust me, guys. Very curious how they mentioned everything else except Black Rose Bramble Dragon, huh? Just saying. You know, a little YouTube combo. Maybe YouTube combo had Jerome McHale in a twist. Why did the Shifter's cost go up? It's barely being played. That's also fair. One of the main issues with like Shifter is that Shifter is very good in defined metagames. Like, obviously, very tight metagames where it is very obvious that only one or two decks is worth playing. Shifter is going to see a lot of play. And additionally, Shifter will also only see play if Shifter is able to hit either the top deck extremely well or the decks that beat the top decks extremely well. Think of like tier limit format. Like Flunder, the reason why Shifter was everywhere in like tier limit format was because, you know, like Vadolce and Fluunderies, they could use it to beat tier limit to an extent. The reason why like Vanquish Soul played Shifter was because there are some decks that were below Vanquish Soul that you could just use Shifter in and you could kind of just like shit on them, you know what I mean? But Shifter in Genesys is different because this metagame is far more open and Shifter is able to, you know, it's able to see some play, but at the same time, it's not a defined enough metagame that Shifter will always be like a relevant pick, as well as the fact that 30 points is also a lot of points. Maybe it could have gone to 13 points and been 40, but like again, Shifter is just not that good of a card. It maybe beats like Radiant Typhoon and like Fire King. Like that's it. Those decks are like pretty okay, but are you always gonna go against Radiant Typhoon or Fire King? Maybe like 30% of your matches. But is 30 points enough to cover for 30% of your matches? Answer's no. What in the world happened to the branded extra deck? Okay. The Fallen of the Virtuous is going to be the best in slot generic quick play removal spell if you didn't cost it and the extra deck monsters that get you another copy of it, or another card in general. The numbers probably look intimidating for all you pilots out there, but we made sure that branded based strategy is still viable even if they don't look like the branded decks you're familiar with. We're already seeing strategy guides being posted for new points cost and how to make the deck still work. As always, we'll keep a close eye on this. I'll tell you right now, these strategy guides, fucking garbage. This deck is actively unplayable. You cannot play this deck anymore. You want to tell me a deck with... How many points does Branded have total? Just in engine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. It has 300 points! 300! And this is if you want to play bad cards! That's a duplicate Ecclesia. You get the idea. Why on earth would you ever try to make this deck work? It is unplayable. It is quite literally never going to be played. You cannot play this deck anymore. There's probably Masquerade. Yeah, Masquerade's also got points. There are some decks that do exist within this format. Like, yes, you can still play Vanquish Soul. Like, it's not unplayable. It's just a lot worse. You can still play something like Megalith in this format, but it's gonna be pointed out because you have to build around Anastasis, which is fine. You cannot build around Brandon. It is unplayable. Are you hiding in my walls? No, that's weird. Happy Halloween. Go fuck yourself, Konami. What happened to last turn? Where's last turn? Where is it? Whatever. Fuck my chud cell life, I guess. Again, you can kind of argue that like this little section kind of answered why like last turn is banned, but again, they didn't really answer every question. They answered some specific questions, but they're not great answers. They dodged the main question. Like, why, like, we're not really worried about, like, why Rescue Ace Impulse got points. I mean, like, we are, but, like, you know. Like, the main issue is, why didn't Radiant Typhoon, a deck that's obviously been putting high amounts of results on par with Vanquish Soul and Megalith, got 0 points, while Megalith got immediately pointed out? Why did cards like Heavy Storm immediately get massive amounts of points back and became generic extra deck clearers? Like, why didn't you just make Fallen and Virtuous have a way higher point cost that you could only play it in that deck, you know what I mean? Like, legitimately, if you made Fallen and the Virtuous 33 points and you just made each extra deck card like 1 point, that would make sense. That would be like perfectly fine. The answer is they want to sell dude. Yep. Many such cases. Many such cases. Hashtag nudising. No acknowledgement or reason why troll. I wonder why troll is here. Monkey. They didn't want to kill the card. The card's already killed! The card's already gone! Alright. I don't know, where's my fucking Badolce list? Okay. Fallen and the Virtuous. Alright. You want to play 3. It's 45 points already if you want to play it, but it's fine. Fallen of Albaz. If you want to play any card, like sure, maybe you could play, it would cost you 55 points to play one Raigeki break. 55 points. Plus, if you wanted to play like Ecclesia, that would also cost you another like. You want to play Titanic Clad? That's gonna cost you this plus the 3 points that Ecclesia would cost. It's gonna be 68 points to play one set of quick play spells. Have you opened the branded structure deck? I did actually. I opened one branded structure deck. 2, I just bought like 2 loose copies of Fallen of the Virtuous, and the 3rd one I just bought it because my friend K-Woo was at locals, and pulled a little nice. Yeah, our cover card was a QCR Fusion of Flamant. Yeah, we're kind of nice like that. Also, shout out to the Genesys playmat. Looks very, very pretty. All I'm gonna say, how did I get this? Thank the Shadow Government. Anyways, I really wish that they brought up some more concerns or whatever in regards to like bad decks and why certain cards are hit and blah 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 blah. All I'm gonna say is, Konami, please don't hit Artifact Mjolnir. I need to play Automat incorrectly in order to Mjolnir lock people. Anyways, thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye forever.